Finally, it's looking like the fog around Death Stranding is starting to be lifted. Kojima Productions put out their most detailed trailer on the game yet yesterday, and as somebody who's been following the game very closely since it was announced, I'm pretty happy with what we got out of it. Now, we have had a pretty good idea about the tone and the setting of the game, at least on a surface level, but what we've been missing all this time is an actually close look at what moment-to-moment gameplay is going to actually be like. But now it's looking like we have a much better understanding of it. From what we saw, there seems to be three major gameplay types, or situations, if you will. Big, grand-scale traversal sections with lots of exploring and climbing and rappelling and the like. Close quarters combat with various firearms and some pretty intense-looking hand-to-hand combat, or suitcase-to-hand, as well as some very eerie stealth sections that seem to employ that more horror-themed element that we've seen a lot of focus on in previous cinematic trailers. Now, I think this is very likely not the extent of the different types of gameplay scenarios that Sam will find himself in, but everything that was shown in the new trailer seems to fall into one of those categories, and they all seem very well planned out and well realized. There seems to be a very interesting arsenal of tools for different traversal situations. This could really open the door for some insanely fun exploration if it's expanded upon the way that I think it's going to be. The combat is also looking very sharp, with some nice high-end effects work happening with the shooting and great combos and animations during close quarters combat. And I really like that apparently different items can be used in combat. Almost kind of reminds me of Yakuza a little bit. Another thing to note is that some items can get knocked off of Sam's pack when he's hit, so this will further incentivize either using stealth exclusively or preparing your attacks as much as possible ahead of time, which is more than likely a philosophy that Kojima picked up from making Metal Gear Solid 5. Now, these darker sneaking sections seem like the areas that are still shrouded in the most mystery. Obviously, these shadowy figures are antagonistic to Sam to some degree, and Sam is best off not being noticed by them, but their direct connection to the situation and why being spotted by them results in tar people reaching up from the ground to drag Sam to his death or possibly another point in time is still largely unexplained, and I'm sure that those answers are being held back for another time, although I'm also sure that the community isn't short on theories. Feel free to let me know what you think all of this is about in the comments. But to me, it seems like the interdimensional crossing over of those who resist the past and those who are bound to it. I really like how all of these different elements and situations are shaping up, and I'm hoping for lots of mixing between all three. I hope it's not segmented out so much that we can see the lines between them. I'm interested to see how going from combat to large-scale traversal and sneaking around these interdimensional entities will complement each other if they're served up in either close proximity to each other or crossing over into different combinations as the game progresses. We also heard a lot of expositional dialogue about reestablishing connections with each other and returning to making closer connections as a way for humanity to move past the dire straits that it currently finds itself in. Kojima has said that Death Stranding will speak on this topic to a degree, but I wasn't aware that it was going to be so integral to the story and the setting of the game. It's looking more and more like we might be in for some pretty bold social commentary here, and I'm down with that. Frankly, I think we could really use it, and Kojima isn't wrong for being concerned about people drifting slowly further and further into their own little social corners, only rarely poking their head out to project a fictional version of themselves for a brief moment. Anybody who's been alive for more than, 12 years can probably see that that is a growing problem in our society, and I really like the idea that a video game of all mediums is trying to tackle it in some form. I also really enjoyed the selection of these new characters that were introduced, and ones that were expanded upon a little bit. From Deadman to Heartman to Die Hard Man, it definitely seems like Kojima's charming old-school style of creating characters is still very much a part of who he is. I mean, you might as well throw in Mega Man, Eggman, and Bravo Man while you're at it, right? I've always admired Kojima's ability to make the most cutting-edge games of their time while simultaneously maintaining the soul of the old school in subtle ways here and there. And don't think I didn't notice those snow physics straight out of Horizon Zero Dawn's Frozen Wilds. Looks like Kojima's collaboration with Guerrilla Games and borrowing tech from their Decima engine seems to be paying off. And if you think about it, these environments that we're seeing in Death Stranding might also be a bit of a sideways glance into what environments of Horizon 2 might look like, which is pretty interesting in its own right. Now, I don't really think I would blame you if you're one of the folks that have seen their anticipation of Death Stranding wane a little bit over the last year or so. I've been hearing about this a lot, and I can kind of understand why it's out there. I do think that the game was announced way too early, and perhaps that did play a role in the details being so scarce for so long, but now that we do actually have a little bit of gameplay to chew on, albeit still accompanied by lots of questions and mystery, I do think there's plenty of reason to get excited about Death Stranding again, especially considering that it's coming out in November. On top of all the information that we got about the game, including that release date, 2 special editions were also announced. And they're not particularly exciting to me. Most of the benefits to them seem to be in-game items, which doesn't really do a lot for me, although I am a sucker for soundtracks, so maybe my mind will change on that. But at the end of the day, Death Stranding is looking good in my opinion. I'm very excited to see this. I'm always asking for more interesting, unique experiences, and it looks like Death Stranding is trying to deliver that to one degree or another. So the holiday season for PlayStation fans is going to be very interesting, and if Naughty Dog is able to get The Last of Us Part 2 out the door as well, we could be in for a very interesting last half of 2019. If you want to keep up with my gaming news coverage and reviews and other stuff that I feel like putting up, feel free to subscribe to my channel. But until then, thanks for watching.
Rebuilding America isn't going to get rid of the BTs.